Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Purvacitti, Ashtotter, the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Purvacitti, Ashtotter, the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in the best of songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 11th day of August 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in the 5th canto entitled The Creative Impetus, 2nd chapter, The Activities of Maharaj Agnidhra. Text number 8. Now just one note on this word by word that we're doing before we chant the verse. It's meant to be the words that are in the verse, not from the word-by-word meanings. So, because it helps us to chant, and so with all of the Sandhi rules, the different changes in pronunciation, we're supposed to reflect that. Just to let you know, it's chanted from the verse itself. Banav imau bhagavataha shatapatra patrau shantav apunkha ruchirav atitigma dantau kasmai yuyungshasi vane vicharang navidmaha chemaya no jaradhyam tava vikramostu bana vimau bhagavatak shatapatra patrao shantavapunka ruchiravati tigmadantao kasma yuyungsha sivane vicharang nam vidma chemaya no jadadiyang tava vikramostu bana vimau bhagavatak shatapatra patrao shantavapunka vichiravati tigmadantao kasma yuyungsha sivane vicharanna vidma chemaya no jadadiyang tava vikramostu. Go ahead. Bana vimau bhagavatak shatapatra patrao shantavapunka vichiravati tigmadantao kasma yuyungsha sivane vicharanna vidma chemaya no jadadiyam tava vikramostu. Prabhu. Bana vimau bhagavatak shatapatra patrao shantavapunka ruchirav atitigmadantao nadinma chemaya no jadadiyam tava vikramostu. Deva. Got it? Bana vimau bhagavatak shatapatra patrao shantavapunka ruchirav atitigmadantao kasma yuyungsha sivane vicharanna vidmaha chemaya no jadadiyam tava vikramostu. Banau, 2 arrows. Imau, these. Bhagavataha, of you the most powerful. Shatapatra patrao, having feathers like the petals of a lotus flower. Shantao, peaceful. Apunkha, without a shaft. Ruchirao, very beautiful. Atitigmadantao, having a very sharp point. Kasmai, whom? Yuyungshasi, you want to pierce. Vane, in the forest. Vicharan, loitering. Navidmaha, we cannot understand. Chemaya, for welfare, Naha, of us, Jadadiyam, who are dull-headed, Tava, your, Vikramaha, prowess, Astu, may be. Translation. Then Agnidhra observed the glancing eyes of Purvacitti and said, "My dear friend, you have two very powerful arrows, namely your glancing eyes. Those arrows have feathers like the petals of a lotus flower. Although they have no shafts, they are very beautiful, and they have very sharp, piercing points. They appear very peaceful, and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. You must be loitering in the forest to shoot those arrows at someone, but I cannot understand whom. My intelligence is dull, and I cannot combat you. Indeed, no one can equal you in prowess, and therefore I pray that your prowess will be for my good fortune." Purport. Agnidhra thus began appreciating Purvacitti's powerful glance upon him. He compared her glancing eyes to very sharp arrows. Although her eyes were as beautiful as lotuses, they were simultaneously like shaftless arrows, and Agnidhra was therefore afraid of them. He hoped that her glances upon him would be favorable, because he was already captivated, and the more captivated he became, the more impossible it would be for him to remain without her. Agnidhra therefore prayed to Purvacitti that her glances at him would be auspicious, not futile. In other words, he prayed that she would become his wife. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I've been around a long time, since 1973 in the Hare Krishnas. And I remember when I joined the ashram, and we had a lot of brahmacharis, and we had a fair number of ladies also in the temple, single ladies. And so we were advised that it's best if you don't look them in the eye. If you can look at the feet, or you can look above, somehow or other. Be careful look at the eyes. And the reason was because the attraction usually begins with a glance. You see each other, and there's a certain electricity that develops, whatever, So seeing, then talking, and then goes on from there. So that wasn't enforced so much. The main thing was that everybody's a mother. Mother this, mother that. The ladies never liked that much, but that was Prabhupada's instruction. And if you actually, it's not just some formality, but you're actually meant to think like that. That these ladies are in relation of mother, not that there's some, attraction developed because it's your mother. So there's all of these customs that would develop, and all for the sake of trying to, bank the fire, the natural fire of lust that is easily ignited when you have these single women and single men mixing together. But in general, we see here, this is a major feature of attraction. And Agnidhra is meditating on that, the glancing eyes of Purvacitti. He observed the glancing eyes. And he seems, they appear very, and thus it seems that they will not be shot at anyone. I think what's meant here is not to shot at just anyone. In other words, they're so powerful and attractive that you're reserving them for someone very special, and I hope it's me. I mean, this is the implication that you get from this. So you must be loitering as far as to shoot at someone, but I cannot understand whom. So this is part of the ongoing description of Agnidra's fulfillment of his desire, that this beautiful, unbelievably, imaginably beautiful damsel from heaven would join him, and he would marry her, and so forth. And we see what happens, that they become attracted, and there's no formal marriage that goes on. but there's children that develop. These seven sons, I believe. And then after that, she goes back to Brahmaloka. But those 7 sons are very important. They get, if you read the names of them, they seem to be familiar because they're names of different varshas in Jambudvip. So each of those sons was so exalted they were entrusted to rule a different varsha. It's like we're in Bharata Varsha. And eventually one of them, Nabi, becomes the father of Rishabdev, who's an incarnation of Krishna. So in spite of the kind of, I don't want to say, it's not a formal marriage here. It's not that she's being given away by the father and all these different things. That the mixing of these two and their offspring is very auspicious. But his ultimate destination is Pitraloka. He doesn't go back to Godhead for this because he's not practicing devotional service, as it were, in the ordinary way. Well, what I wanted to share was some of the ways in which this sidelong glance is also spoken about in our Shastra. And I picked out several verses. Hopefully, this is my backup. It's not working as well as the other one. But this comes up again and again. The way in which Krishna, the sidelong glance of Krishna, and how he tracks the gopis that way. And there's one verse here I'll say that Radharani's sidelong glance. Don't ever forget that she's not an ordinary lady. She's not a jiva. I was looking at, as I walked this morning to the temple. It was threatening rain, and I was looking at. It's always deserted at that hour, 4:25, whatever. But I've been researching these verses, and there's one poem. It's very famous in Vrindavan. Some of you may have heard of this. Radha Kripaka Taksha Stavaraj. Have you heard that one? It's all about the sidelong glance of Radharani. Kataksha means the sidelong glance. And it's quite, I'll share a few verses from you. And the benefits of chanting, wow. If you stand in Radhakund and you chant this with your water up to your waist or your chest or the neck. And I always wonder, well, why would anyone choose the neck or the chest if you can actually do the waist? But anyway, if you stand there and you chant it 100 times, I'm sorry. It's quite long. It's 12 verses and each verse is quite long. It takes several hours. I haven't done it, but I just measured it. You get Radha Bhava. You get the highest levels of Prema Bhakti. So I knew 2 friends. I won't mention their names. And they came across this. I shared it with them. And they decided, let's go to Radhakund. This is our shortcut to Radha Bhava. And we'll stand there and chant this. But as hard as they could try, they couldn't do it. They couldn't get, somehow or other, the bus wasn't on time, something they didn't miss out, the tickets. They weren't able to get to Radhakund to chant. This is not so easy. It's not as Prabhupada says, you can't just buy a ticket for Vrindavan. There's a qualification for going there. So one of the verses that comes to mind, which I memorized, some of you may, this is the power of Lord Chaitanya's sidelong glance, by which he bestows his mercy. Some of you may know this. Kaivalyam nadakayate tudashapura akasha pushpayate durdandendi yakada sarvapatali prodkata dangstrayate vishwang purna sukayate vidimahindra adistakitayate yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam godame vastuma. This is from Chaitanya Chandramrita, a wonderful collection of verses about Lord Chaitanya, written by Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, who was Gopal Bhatta Goswami's uncle, very exalted and renounced devotee, wrote many wonderful books, one of which is this Chaitanya Chandramrita, which I recorded many years ago. If you're interested, I can give it to you. So what this verse, Prabhupada would often quote this verse, and what he says there is that those who are empowered by the sidelong glance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which you receive by his grace if you're sincerely participating in the Sankirtan movement. In other words, if you're following nicely. And what this says is, there's various things that are results of that sidelong glance. The first thing is Kaivalyam nadakayate, is that you feel as if the merging into the oneness of Brahman, in other words, impersonal liberation, is just like going to hell. Worse than going to hell. Now, who can say why? Why is that so hellish for a devotee? Merging into Brahman and just floating there and being liberated. Yeah, you have no form. You're, the supreme absolute truth that you're meditating on is just the Brahman effulgence. So there's no chance of any service. You'd rather be in hell where you can practice devotional service. You can chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, try to be saved from the punishments of hell. But at least you're able to chant. You've got a tongue, you've got, So, Kaivalyang Nanakayate. Then he said, Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate. Tridashapur refers to, it says 30 realms, higher realms of heaven. But actually that stands for 30 million or something. There's unlimited realms. But we think of, okay, going to Indralok, we've heard about that one. Brahmaloka, where Purvacitti will be up there. That may be exciting. But he says, no. This is just like Akasha Pushpa. You know what that is? Akasha Pushpa? Pushpa is flower. Akasha is sky. Sky flower. Who's going to want a sky flower? It doesn't even exist, right? In other words, it's so unattractive that it's as if it didn't even exist. Who cares about the heavenly planets? Then, what about the yogic cities, and the yoga practice? So here it said, before you get any cities, you have to practice yoga and you have to control those senses, those powerful senses. So they're like poisonous snakes that can bite you with their fangs and ruin your consciousness. Each of the senses has its own sense object. So very difficult and very... So here he says, Durdandendriya kala sarpa patalit prodkata dangstrayate. Prabhupada quotes this or refers to it in one purport in the 6th chapter of Gita, I think. So what this says that the very difficult to control senses, Durdandendriya, which are just like kala sarpa, poisonous snakes, patalit prodkata dangstrayate, they're as if they have their fangs removed. So this is very illustrative. It means that the senses that you have, you're using for Krishna's service. So even though to the outside, well, they got the same eyes, same ears, these devotees are doing what we're doing. But no, we're not being victimized by the senses. We're not serving the senses for sense pleasure, but we're using the senses to serve Krishna, Rishikesh, the master of the senses. And therefore, they can't hurt you. In fact, they help you. They're paraphernalia for service. We need these senses. We need a body. And then it says, Vishwang Purna Sukhayate. For such a devotee, the whole universe is filled with happiness. Meaning that everywhere you look, you see, I saw this in one of Prabhupada's books, you see the Leela of Krishna being enacted. You're seeing the pastimes of Krishna everywhere. And it's full of happiness in the same way as Prahlad says, is that wherever I am, I can immerse myself in your glories and thus immerse my consciousness in an ocean of nectar, of bliss. So you can imagine what a value add it is that today, in today's world, the facade and the dream of being able to enjoy in this world is being ruined at every step by the COVID, by the economic difficulties, the threat of being evicted. There's so many things, and that's why there's so much tension. Every day there's some crazy shooting somewhere, and it's horrible. There's over 300 million guns in this country. So how can we be happy? You have to be happy by plugging in to the reservoir of pleasure in your heart by being Krishna conscious. And then you can float. You see the difficulties, and like Prahlad, you're also unhappy. Happy and unhappy at the same time. I am lamenting for these fools and rascals who've turned away from you, looking for illusory happiness, flickering Maya Sukhaya, and bearing the great burden of trying to experience that flickering happiness. Maya Bodham Udvahato Vimudhan. So Prahlad, he doesn't just turn his back on them, as he explains in the next verse, but he stays in the cities and he wants to preach and give them Krishna, give them Lord Nrsimhadev. So that's the unhappiness of the devotee. But as far as his own life, he's situated in happiness by being Krishna conscious all the time. So then someone who is thus empowered by the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya, he experiences these things. So that means you've gotten the favor and the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. That mercy is cast that way. Now here's one about Krishna's sidelong glances. There are a lot of verses in the Shastra, in the Bhagavatam as well, including the Bhagavatam. This one of my favorite pastimes is the killing of the donkey demons, Dhenukasura. And it's very interesting because Balaram is featured in that chapter. He's the one who actually kills Dhenukasura. So after the whole pastime is over, of killing the demons and the fruits coming down, but it said in the Bhagavatam, they're kind of contaminated now from all the blood of these donkey demons. And so the coward boys who requested them, they don't actually eat them. But other people, lower class of Aborigines, they come and they harvest those fruits and eat. So Krishna's now coming back into the town. It's not that he's had an emotional reaction, killing all these demons. I had to go through. No, he's perfectly peaceful and happy, and he's coming in, and the gopis are greeting him on the path. They're separated all day. First he goes out, and they come out to watch him go out. There's that scene in chapter 21, beautiful verses. And then all day they're singing about him. And then he comes back. Is it time yet? They go up. Oh, look, there's the dust. There's a big cloud of dust there. That's might be Krishna, with all his thousands of cows and the boys coming back. And finally he comes into the village, and this is what happens. This is how they react to seeing his face after the separation. Pitva mukunda mukasarga makshi bringais. Tapam duhu vadahajam brajayoshitoni. Tatsatkutim samadigamya vivesha goshtam savridahasa vinayam yatapanga moksham. That apanga moksham, that's the sidelong glance. So with their bee-like eyes, the gopis of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Lord Mukunda, and thus they gave up the distress they had felt during the day because of separation from him. The young gopis cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission. And Krishna, completely accepting these glances as a proper offering of respect, entered the cowherd village. So that's it's a very sweet verse. And this whole pastime, then you go to Vatsalya Ras. Then they go into the home with Mother Yashoda, and of course Balaram goes home to Rohini, and Krishna goes. And there's a beautiful song from the Gopal Champu. I'll share it. It's kind of short, but it describes this pastime, and the Sanskrit is just off the charts. And so Mother Yashoda, so you have the Vatsalya Ras, so you have the Sakya Ras, now you have the little conjugal Ras, and now you have the Vatsalya Ras, all in this one pastime. So the song, the verse goes like this, the refrain, Harina Harina Sahatapadalina Rajani Mukamana Janani La Datamittikalitam Chitakalina. Can you repeat? I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Go with that. No one can. So Harina, that's Lord Hari, that's Krishna. Halina is Balaram, who carries the plow. Harina, Halina, Sahadapadalina, they're together, and Rajani Mukham, when the face of night appears, the evening time, the face of night is the evening. The mother, she comes and she, as she go in there, then she greets them and she pampers them in various ways. Anyway, the song goes on. I won't go into detail, but it describes, I didn't know this, I don't know if you ever noticed, that she performs a little arati for Krishna and Balaram. This is the Gopal Champu. And then she looks at their faces with great love, and she wipes off all the dust. Then she does a little massage, then a full bath, immersion. Then she dresses them in their evening clothes, pajamas, and then she puts tilak on. And then the next verse, she feeds them a whole feast of various preparations with scented water and all these different things. Then she has her servants come prepare the bed for sleeping. And meanwhile, some of the more intimate friends are looking in the door, like that scene in the Nectar Devotion, And she invites them in, does the same services for them, and they have a sleepover. They sleep over with Krishna. So that's that pastime. And there's one or two more I'd like to share here. The first of the songs of the gopis in chapter 21, this is called Venu Gita, famous section. So when the gopis start singing, the first verse is about the sidelong glances. Akshan vatam palamidam naparam vidama sakya pashuna nabaveshi yadovayasyai vaktrang vajesha sutayo anubenu jishtam yava nupitam anarakta kataksha moksham. Oh friends, those eyes that see the beautiful faces of the sons of King Nanda are certainly fortunate. As these two sons enter the forest surrounded by their friends, driving the cows before them, they hold flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan from the corners of their eyes. For those who have eyes, we think there's no greater object of vision. And by the way, there's a wonderful book that was written many years ago by Shivaram Swami called Venu Gita, in which he takes this whole pastime and he develops from all the writings of the acharyas. There's a whole wonderful expansions of this by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur and Jiva Goswamis and Sanatana Goswami. And he put it into a nice thick book of meditation. It's a very wonderful book. And then finally there's one other verse. This is a prayer that Krishna will glance upon us with his beautiful sidelong glance. This is a verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. It's included in Padyavali, and it's got the easiest meter that there ever can possibly be. Every syllable is long. Barha pidam maulau bimbrun vangsi naran atanvan nana kalpa shri sampanno gopastri be sambita netranandam kuvan krishna tuntvad vikshesh viksheta save kamak sampadhyera sasmakam vidyasina. Decked with crown of peacock plumes and chanting songs with flute you sing, wearing lovely ornaments while standing in the gopis' ring. Dear most Krishna, eyes delight, if you will kindly glance our way, all our heart's desires will be fulfilled on this most blessed day. So we can pray like that. So that glance of Krishna, we're so fortunate. Every time we come before the deities, Krishna is looking at us, right? Of course, we begin our meditation on the lotus feet and gradually move up to the lotus face. And there Krishna is glancing. And I have so many pictures of deities. The deities in so many temples, our deities are exquisite. There's nothing more to desire. But in Alachua, they have these wonderful deities. And a few years ago, they installed Krishna Balaram, which are just amazing. I have some beautiful pictures of them. And I like to get, maybe it's not quite authorized, but I like to get up close and take the picture so that they're looking right at you. You know how you have a photograph where wherever you go, it's looking at you, you can go to the side. So I have several of those of the deities there. And that's, after all, what we want to strive for, is to, again, turn toward Krishna and be recognized, do some humble service to as sincerely as we can, and Krishna will somehow glance upon us and smile. Now, I remember, I didn't have direct experience, but that I've heard and read so many times when devotees, they would work so hard, and Krishna and Srila Prabhupada would hear about the service, and they would come before him, and he would smile, and that was the fulfillment of all of their aspirations. If Prabhupada would smile at the service that they did, because that's a recognition that, okay, I accept it because it's done with love, it's done with affection, sincerity, and the acceptance of the Lord of your service or the Lord's devotee is like it's like an ocean of encouragement, and you feel fulfilled by that. So by being sincere and trying to be as pure as possible and follow very carefully, and hear the words of the Shastra, and this is what Krishna reciprocates. He reciprocates in many ways, from within the heart. He gives you the strength to follow nicely if you really sincerely try. And if you cook something or do any service and make the offering and pray that He'll accept it, and you feel encouraged in your service. And then what's the immediate result? You're more enthusiastic in kirtan. You're more attracted to the holy name. You really like being among the devotees. You don't want to, you're not thinking, well, this is too difficult. This is too austere. He said this about me. He said that maybe I should live apart. No, the association of devotees becomes very attractive, which is a very important thing. So that because staying in the association gives you the strength to follow, to try to practice Krishna consciousness on your own in this world. Maybe if you're living in Vrindavan, but even then it's very difficult. Association is essential. So here we see how association, the Sangha of Agnidhra and Purvacitti, they're locked. His aspiration has come together. They're going to come together and produce offspring, and he's eventually going to go to Pitri-loka. But we don't want to go to Pitri-loka. Does anyone here want to go to Pitri-loka? I don't even want to know what's up there. We want to learn about what's in Goloka Vrindavan, what's happening with Krishna. And Prabhupada has given us all these books, the Krishna book. I read Krishna book every day. I remember, it was a tradition. You'd read Krishna book at night, take some hot milk, take rest in the morning, get up, cold shower. Okay, it's time for another day. And it fills your mind with Krishna thought. And that's how you become attracted to Krishna. Because He's all attractive. You chant His name, you read about Him, you hear about Him, you serve Him, you will become attracted. And so it's completely natural. And the wonderful thing is, have you ever wondered about this? There's never like, on the human plane, you can have a certain number of friends, really, but it's not very large that you can actually have friendship with. It's an illusion to think you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, But what to speak of, intense love, that's one of the most painful things. You love somebody, they love you back, but then they fall out of love, they go to someone else. What happened? There's a huge downside to try to do it on the material plane. But Krishna is infinite. He has infinite servants, and He has a personal relationship with every single one of them. We all have our custom-made individual relationship with Krishna, and we all have our bodies that are exactly suited to engage in that relationship. And we're trying to revive our awareness of the relationship and the service, and ultimately the very form that we have. And then we're perfectly happy doing our humble little service in Vrindavan, knowing that Krishna Himself is pleased with it, and we have our loving relationship with Krishna. It's supernatural. You can never be satisfied. That's why it's like what they call fool's gold, this so-called love in this material world. It looks like the real thing. There's the songs, there's the books about it, and you dream about it, and then you suddenly you're in a relationship. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever happened. But as time goes on, it changes. If nothing else, you both get older. What happened to that beautiful girl I married? What happened to that powerful guy? He's in the wheelchair now. There's always disappointment. It's Maya's trick. That's why we're talking about we're talking about the con artist. The con that was yesterday, day before. And Maya is that's her job, to con us into thinking that we can be happy here. It's a test. You have to, by the mercy of the Guru and the Shastra and the devotees, you can see through the con. And you can say that verse, who did you refer to it? Kama dinang? I think that was Dharma Setu. Kama dinang katina katita padita durni deshas tesham jata mayana kadona natrapano prashantihi utsrijayata nati yodopate sampratam labna buddhis tvamayata kshadanam abhayam mam liyung svatmadase. Such a rich verse. And we're not actually sure who wrote it. There's some indication that Madhavendra Puri wrote it, but they're not sure. But it's included in the CC. And I think it's in the Pajavali too. So, in how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy. Yet on I've gone, shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. There's so much in that verse. First is an honest analysis of our situation, that we're bound hand and foot. You should read this. It's a poem by Raghunath Das Goswami, a demonic shiksha. Asas cheshta kashta pradavikata pashala biriha. We're on the path trying to practice devotional service, but we're waylaid on the path by these highwaymen of lust, anger, greed, illusion, and they bind us around the neck with the ropes of wicked activities. When we actually yield to them and we act in that way, then that really is an impediment. So what's the only hope? You remember? And there's Bhakabid, to call out for Krishna, or there's one interpretation for the devotees of Krishna. To call out for the help from the devotees. And they will free you from this by giving you the means to say no to these allurements of the senses. It's all of the senses coming. So this verse says, how many ways have I sought to obey? Oh, unlimited ways in unlimited lifetimes. We've been obeying the demands of the eyes and the ears and the genitals and everything else, and getting entangled and having to take a birth again and again, sometimes lower than human forms. So now he says, my intelligence has awoken. This is the thing. By hearing the Shastra from the right source and in the right attitude, that awakens the real intelligence. Labdha buddhi, I've regained my real intelligence. So now what am I doing? I'm saying no, I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my intelligence has awoken. But that's not enough, because we have to serve. We're either going to serve the senses or we're going to serve Krishna, serve Krishna's senses. Our senses are Krishna's senses. So he said, so therefore he's running to the Lord. Tvamayatak, I'm approaching you. Shadanamabhayam, O fearless shelter. Please engage me in your service. It's one or the other. Either we're going to serve Krishna's senses or we're going to serve our senses. And Maya's trick is to try to convince you that, well, your senses are immediately going to be satisfied. And we've had experience, Yeah, there's some nice food stuff. We eat it again, eat a little too much, okay, but that was nice. That really tasted good, But that, cultivating that desire for forbidden, unoffered foodstuffs will definitely keep you bound up in this world of birth and death. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. But if you, that same desire to eat, if you cultivate the desire for Krishna prasadam, and you take it in the right attitude, and it's a sacrament, then that gets you out of this world. That's part of a loving exchange with Krishna. Oh, and that brings up this other point. I did go on too long. I reminded myself. This is the disappearance day of Raghunandana Thakur and Bhanksidas Babaji. Now, believe it or not, in the Samadhi's book, there's nothing about Bhanksidas Babaji, but I did find something in, where else? Online. But we do have Raghunandana Thakur, who I'm going to read about right now. And it's very much related to the offering of prasadam. Many of you may know his pastimes. Okay, so Mukunda Das was a physician. Being called away on medical business, Mukunda Das once asked his young son, Raghunandana, who later became Raghunandana Thakur, to offer the Raj Bhog to the family deity of Gopinath. Raghunandana prepared everything timely, carefully, and with great devotion. When he made the offering, he remembered his father's order: make sure the deity eats. Ringing the bell, the simple boy told Gopinath deity, "Eat, eat!" He's just a young boy. Raghunandana began crying when he saw the untouched food remaining on the deity's plate. He feared his father's anger for his inability to make the deity eat. Let's make sure the deity eats. That's not going to make the deity eat. Anyway, so Gopinath couldn't resist the child's intense devotion. So the Lord ate everything on the plate, leaving no remnants. Upon returning, Mukunda asked for Gopinath's Mahaprasadam. Raghunandana said the deity ate everything. Astonished, Mukunda told his son to make the offering again. From a hidden place, Mukunda watched in total amazement as Raghunandana offered a laddu to Gopinath. But the Lord only took half the laddu, Mukunda understood that the deity only took half because he was still full from eating the lunch offering. Choked with divine emotion in appreciation of his pure devotee son, Mukunda embraced Raghunandana. Later, in Jagannath Puri, this is how it became so famous. Lord Gauranga lovingly asked Mukunda Das, "Who is the father and who is the son?" Mukunda replied, Raghunandana is definitely my father, because he has given me Krishna Bhakti and showed me pure Krishna consciousness. In Krishna Leela, Raghunandana is Kandarpa Manjari, or Pradyumna, like that. Now, it's a little late, but I want to read something about Bhanktidas Babaji. And what I found was quite substantial, so I'll try to read it quickly. Bhanktidas Babaji was a Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhu who lived at Surup Gunj, Navadvip, during the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was respected by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he used to see to it, Bhaktisiddhanta used to see to it that Bhanktidas was provided with grains and so on by the Gaudiya Mat brahmacharis. Sri Bhanktidas Babaji appeared in the village of Majidpur in the Jamalpur district of Bangladesh. Before the partition of India, the city was formerly the district of Mymensing. His father's name is Sanatan and so forth. He lived as a total recluse, far away from the hubbub of the town, in a solitary place on the bank of the Ganges in Navadvip, as if he was a mad or crazy person. His only possessions were an old kopan, karanga, and kanta. Karanga is the pot, I think, is the water pot. And kanta is kantimala. Kanta means throat, which you hear. Bhanktidas Babaji lived in a world of his own. His world centered around his deities, Gaur Gadadhar, Nittai, Radha Krishna, and Gopal. For the service of his deities, he had 2 brass pots, some earthen pots, 1 plate, 1 glass, some small cups, and so forth. Bell, kancha. Bhanktidas passed day and night in the service of the deities and in sweet talks with them. Early in the morning, he went out from his kuti to collect flowers. Then he went for bhiksha, that's getting some donation. He returned to his kutiya about noon and made garlands from the flowers for each of the 6 deities. After that, he would cut the vegetables. He washed each vegetable a number of times. Then he cleaned rice, examined each grain of rice. If he found any grain from which the husk was not removed, he removed it with his own hand. He did everything very slowly, contemplating all the time the Leela of Radha Krishna or Gaur Nitai, and singing or talking to them. It was only late in the evening that he could cook and offer bhoga to the deities. He had no consciousness of time. Morning and evening, day and night, had no meaning for him. Almost the whole night he kept awake, talking and singing. One day, a lady selling fish approached Bhanktidas, offering him some choice type of catch. Okay, so this is where you have to realize this avadut. Somehow or other, the Babaji's mind became attracted to tasting the fish. But he immediately rebuked himself and became very angry. He first of all shouted at the woman to go away. Then he shouted at his deities, "How could this happen? How could this happen? I've surrendered my life to Radha and Krishna. I'm under their protection, and still this happens? Why are you not protecting me?" He went storming into his bhajan kutir. People gathered while he fussed and fumed at his deities inside. Then he came out, bringing the deities tied by a rope, and threw them into the Ganges. I never read this before. If you want me to stop, just tell me. He kept this is why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told his disciples, don't try to associate. You won't understand what he's doing. I can see why. He kept the end of the rope under his foot. When one man inquired why he was doing this, the Baba threw a stone at him. When this news reached the Gaudiya Mat, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called all his brahmacharis together and forbade them from visiting the Baba again, save for one who would just deliver supplies. After a few days, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati again called them together and said, "Some of you think I've stopped you from visiting Babaji Maharaj because he is in Maya. That is not so. I prevented you because you will not be able to understand this Baba and will only commit offense. So better you stay away." Later, when one brahmachari visited, Bhanktidas Babaji Maharaj threw a stone at him and told him, "If you want to please me, then never return here again." Babaji never locked the door of his kutir when he went out for bhiksha or to bathe in the Ganges. When asked why he didn't lock the kutir, he said, "If the owner of the house himself does not keep the watch, then what is the use of locking the house?" In other words, if the deities, anyway, we'll see what happens. "I do not even keep the keys of the lock with me. The lock has 3 keys. All the 3 are with the 3 boys. his deities. One is with Gaur, one is with Nitai, and one is with Gadadhar. After entrusting the lock and the keys to the three boys, Baba used to be free from anxiety. If while he was out a cow entered the kutir and ransacked everything, he would be angry with the boys. If someone stole something from the kutir, he would say, Gaur has a soft corner for Nadiyavasis, the residents of Navadvip, the residents of his own dham. Therefore he gives things away to them. I am, after all, an outsider. Once a gold necklace given by someone to Sri Gaur was stolen when he had gone out for bhiksha. On returning to the kutir, he kept on scolding Gaur and asking him whom he had given away the necklace to, for about 2 hours. Towards the evening, he got a hint. He then went to the house of the thief and asked him for the necklace. The thief pushed him down the veranda of his house. He was hurt, but he didn't say anything. But how could Gaur tolerate this? The thief soon died, as well as the other members of his family. Wow. Once Baba had to punish Gaur Nitai for their connivance in a theft. The 2 brass pots in which Baba used to cook for Gaur Nitai were stolen. How could this happen without a connivance of Gaur Nitai? So they were punished. Baba scolded them and did not give them anything to eat for that day. The punishment had its effect. The next day someone came quietly and delivered one of those pots. Baba said, "This small pot is Nitai's. He will be fed today. If Gaur wants to eat, he must also bring his pot." Baba always did what he said. He cooked the offered bhoga to Nitai. Gaur drew a long face as he kept looking at Nitai eating. Eating. In the meantime, another man came and delivered the other pot. Baba then cooked in that pot and offered bhoga to Gaur. When Gaur also had eaten, he said with tears in his eyes, this is the deity speaking, "Do I ever want to punish you? But both of you are..." Oh no, I'm sorry. This is Bangsidas Babaji. "Do I ever want to punish you? But both of you are so naughty that you always harass me. Don't you know that I have now become old and cannot bear it all? What can I do?" Babaji Maharaj, it goes on. Maybe I should end here. All right, so if you want this, I'll send it to you. There's more. Any questions, comments, Prabhu?
Yes, I have a question.
Hold on. We have a local here. I'll call on you.
So you're talking about how we all have a unique relationship with Krishna. I'm reminded of a purport from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in the 14th chapter, verse number 7. It says, Srila Sanatana Goswami further explains that the Lord manifests a specific spiritual quality for the benefit of each living entity. Since there are innumerable living entities within the confines of the material creation, the Lord manifests infinite qualities. Thus, every conditioned soul can appreciate the Supreme Lord in a particular way.
Thank you. So it's not just that we have our unique qualities and identity. That even manifests on the material side. But Krishna manifests qualities just suitable for us. In other words, we want to see him in a certain way, and he manifests that, which is very merciful and loving. Go ahead, Vijay. Krishna, Prabhu.
Dravida Prabhu, my obeisances. The quote from the translation is as follows, quote, "My intelligence is dull, and I cannot combat you," end quote.
I cannot do what?
Combat you.
Combat. Okay.
Combat you.
Got it. I don't have
end
it.
Quote. Prabhu, my question is as follows. What is the difference between a dull intelligence and an intelligence which is not dull?
Well, we go back to our verse. Kamadinam katina katita. It's all about intelligence. The dull intelligence is one that's steeped in the modes of nature. Intelligence is the special gift of the human being. That's what differentiates us from the animals. They eat, we eat, they sleep, we sleep, etc. But they have low intelligence. They're not capable of understanding who they are, what the goal of life is, or how to achieve it, or anything. So it's a great gift, this intelligence. Labdva sudurlama vidam bahusambhavante. After many, many births you achieve. And so intelligence that's simply absorbed in matter. It can be a very high IQ. Incredible scientists, Einstein and so forth, figuring out all these things. But when the intelligence is simply used in the service of the lower self, sense gratification, in short, then it's a tragic misuse of intelligence. So that intelligence that has been purified by hearing and chanting and serving, and in which we use it for inquiring into the absolute truth. That's what the whole Vedanta Sutta begins with. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. That jigyasa, that function of inquiry, that's an intelligence. What's fascinating to you? What do you want to know more about? You know, that's it. It can be completely on the material side, and mostly is. But when you engage it to who am I? Why am I suffering? Where did everything come from? Those are the questions that we should have as human beings. And that's the first sign of good intelligence, proper use of intelligence. But it can be purified like everything else. When the intelligence is purified by much hearing and chanting and thinking of Krishna, contemplating philosophy, discussing with devotees, writing about Krishna, everything that Prabhupada showed us that he did, his perfect Krishna conscious intelligence was always being used in writing and reading and preaching and using it for spreading Krishna consciousness and remembering Krishna. Then that's pure intelligence. So this is our great advantage, and we want to use. You know, it it's not a given. As you get older, it's a little harder to remember things. The intelligence isn't as sharp. So you definitely want to have filled your brain with thoughts of Krishna while you're young, and your intelligence is sharp, so that when it comes time and it gets older, the things that you will remember are all related to Krishna. It's harder to, the scientists say it's harder to make new neurons or more new connections when you get older. But and what's the fruit of the whole thing? The purified intelligence. At that moment of death, you'll remember Krishna. That's the perfection. Yang bhavi smarang bhavam chachachante kalevanam tam tamevaiti konteya sadatat bhava bhavita. That's the general principle. Is that whatever is the most prominent thought when you leave your body, that's going to determine your next birth. And heaven forbid, you know, that all you've done all your life is watch lousy movies and listen to crazy music and do all kinds of sinful activity. It's tragic even to think about the destiny of someone like that. So we all have those backgrounds to a certain degree. Now it's a question of purifying and replacing those memories with remembrances of Krishna, and using the intelligence for spreading Krishna consciousness and memorizing shlokas. That's another thing you can do.
Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. Wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Haribol. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dravida Prabhu.
Haribol.
This is Madhusudan.
Madhusudan, welcome.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
The story about Raghunandana made me remember something that Prabhupada said to me once.
Go ahead.
Sitting in a room, and my father and mother had come and met Prabhupada. So at one point, Prabhupada said to me, actually, you're the father of your father. And that was so new, like, wow, what does that mean? So he said, a father means one who gives birth into life. And Krishna consciousness is the real life. So you have come to Krishna consciousness first, and you'll deliver your father. So actually, you're the father of your father.
I wonder if you can be the mother of your mother. Because, I mean, even if you're in a male body. Because I remember a few weeks before my mother passed, she lived to be 96 years old. And she was in my brother's house in Ithaca. He had gone to visit his sons in Chicago. And so I was staying with my mother. So it was a hospice situation at that point. And I was taking care of her. And I said at one point, Mom, it's time to chant japa. And she didn't know exactly what that was, I explained. And she was very, at that point, totally submissive, whatever I wanted to say, okay. And so we didn't have beads or anything, and she couldn't learn the whole mantra, but she was able to do 2 words at a time. So I would say, Hare Krishna, and she would say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna. She repeated like that. I have recorded it for 5 minutes, And like 2 weeks later, I left, and 2 weeks later, she left her body. So, and she had been favorable all. She was a subscriber to Back to Godhead for many years, and when I would visit her, I would always bring prasadam. She was, my father, he passed away much earlier, in 87. She's passed in 2006. He was always asking when I would come to visit him, when are you getting out of that thing? When are you getting out of that thing? But he was, he was loving. He helped me a lot to get
Well, of
through.
course, it's non-gender, so you're the parent of your parents. You
Yeah,
can say
yeah,
it like that,
yeah. You could say it like that.
Of course.
Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.